grotesque shadows on the walls of the dingy room in Quetta, Pakistan. It was a place where desperation lingered thick in the air, clinging to the handful of migrants gathered within. Adil, a wiry 15-year-old boy, sat on a tattered mat, clutching his modest belongings in a bundle. The voices around him were low, tinged with fear and uncertainty. They spoke of border crossings, of dense jungles and deserts, of barbed wire, and of men with cold eyes and colder hearts who had made smuggling human lives their trade. Adil had never imagined his life would come to this, a dangerous journey to a land he barely understood, spurred by his father's insistent words. "You must go, Adil," his father had said, his voice breaking with sorrow. "There is nothing left here. They've taken everything from us. America is our only hope." With his mother's tearful embrace still haunting him, Adil had boarded a rusted truck packed with strangers, leaving behind the only world he knew. The smugglers referred to the path as Zindagi Ka Safar, the journey of life. The name was cruelly ironic. More often than not, it became the journey of death. From Quetta, Adil and his group were crammed into a concealed compartment of a truck that rattled across desolate roads. The journey was marked by suffocating heat, the acrid stench of sweat and fear, and a silence that carried the weight of unspoken horrors. After what felt like days, they arrived at the outskirts of a barren desert. The smugglers ordered everyone to disembark and handed out meager supplies, water bottles and stale bread. "This is the Balochistan Desert," the leader, a scar-faced man named Rehan, growled. "Walk fast and don't fall behind. If you do, we leave you." The group trudged forward under the blistering sun, their shadows elongating like specters trailing their every step. Adil felt the desert watching him. The air was heavy, and the occasional whisper of the wind seemed like voices, lost souls warning him to turn back. On the second night, a young woman collapsed. She had barely spoken during the journey, and now her silence was eternal. The smugglers barked at the group to keep moving, leaving her body behind, her empty eyes staring at the stars. From the desert, they crossed into Iran and then Turkey, their journey a harrowing mix of hiding in cramped trucks and hiking through unyielding wilderness. The most terrifying leg began as they entered the dense forests of Eastern Europe. Rehan warned them, "Stay close! These woods aren't just dangerous because of the animals." The forest was alive with unnatural sounds, branches snapping, rustling leaves, and occasional low growls that sent shivers through Adil's spine. One night, as they camped in a small clearing, a man claimed he had seen figures in the trees. "They're not smugglers," he whispered. "They're shadows." His words were dismissed as delirium, but Adil couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The group's fear intensified when a young boy disappeared without a trace. Adil had spoken to him the night before. His name was Amir, and he was traveling with his uncle. The next morning, his uncle woke to find the boy's sleeping mat empty. Searches yielded nothing but eerie silence. As they moved forward, Adil swore he saw Amir in the distance, standing among the trees. He called out, but the figure vanished, leaving him cold with dread. That night, Adil dreamed of shadowy figures with hollow eyes, their skeletal hands reaching out to him. He woke up screaming, only to be silenced by Rehan's hand clamping over his mouth. "You'll bring them here!" the smuggler hissed, his own fear evident. The barrier between the group and the next leg of their journey was a raging river. The smugglers had arranged for an inflatable raft, but it was flimsy and inadequate for the number of people. They were ordered to cross in shifts. Adil was part of the second group. As he watched the first raft attempt the crossing, he saw it capsize midway, the passengers' screams drowned by the roar of the water. "Move! We don't have time!" Rehan shouted, forcing Adil into the raft. The current was ferocious, and the raft tilted dangerously. Adil gripped the sides, his knuckles white. He felt something brush against his leg, a cold, slimy sensation that made his heart stop. He looked over the side and saw nothing but the dark water. Suddenly, one of the men in the raft screamed, pointing at the riverbank. There stood a group of figures, barely visible in the dim light. Their forms were twisted, their faces indistinct. "They're watching us," someone muttered. The raft finally reached the other side, but the survivors carried the image of those ghostly figures in their minds. The journey through Europe was a blur of hiding in safe houses, evading border patrols, and endless nights of walking. Adil's group dwindled as people were caught, gave up, or simply disappeared. By the time they reached the smugglers' base in Mexico, only a handful remained. Crossing into America involved a treacherous hike through a desert filled with venomous creatures and border patrol drones. Adil's exhaustion had reached its peak, but he was driven by the memory of his father's words and his mother's tearful goodbye. On the final night, Rehan took the group to a cave for shelter. Inside, the air was cold and damp, and the walls were covered in strange markings, symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. As Adil drifted to sleep, he heard whispers echoing through the cave. When he opened his eyes, he saw shadowy figures standing at the entrance, their hollow eyes glowing faintly. They didn't move or speak, but their presence was suffocating. Adil closed his eyes, praying for them to vanish. When dawn broke, the figures were gone, but their memory lingered like a scar. Rehan led the group to the border wall, and after a tense crossing, Adil finally set foot on American soil. Adil's journey ended in a small, overcrowded apartment in Houston, Texas, where he was reunited with distant relatives. But the shadows of his journey followed him. He saw Amir's face in crowded streets, heard the whispers of the forest in the rustling leaves, and felt the cold grip of the river in his nightmares. The figures from the cave haunted his every step, their hollow eyes a reminder of the lives lost on the path he had taken. Years later, Adil would try to tell his story, but words failed to capture the true horror of his journey. The shadows of his past remained with him, a constant reminder that the cost of survival was paid not just in hardship, but in pieces of his soul. Adil's odyssey from Pakistan to America was not just a physical journey, but a harrowing descent into the darkest recesses of human existence. The shadows he encountered, both literal and metaphorical, were a testament to the lives lost and the spirits broken along the deadly routes of illegal migration. His survival came at a cost, leaving him forever haunted by the horrors of his past. If you enjoyed this story or found it compelling, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support isn't just a button click, it's a huge motivation for us to bring you more captivating stories. And we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What part of the story gave you chills? Let us know below. Thank you for being part of this journey.